Whispering Shadows welcomes you all. Ghost Story Asylum. The chill of night settled over the countryside, an oppressive darkness blanketing the hills and valleys of West Virginia. At the heart of this shadowy expanse loomed the Trans-Allegheny Asylum, its Gothic spires piercing the heavens, defying time and sanity alike. Constructed in the mid-1800s, this sprawling labyrinth had once been a haven for the mentally ill, though tales of torment and despair whispered through its long-abandoned halls like uninvited ghosts. Since its closure in the 1990s, the asylum stood as a haunting reminder of lives fractured by cruelty and neglect. But those who braved its confines on ghost tours swore the place still teemed with echoes of the past. Shadows flitted at the edge of lantern light, distant murmurs teased the silence, and icy drafts seemed to emanate from nowhere. For the truly daring, the asylum offered an 8-hour ghost hunt, a descent into the paranormal that few completed without leaving their nerves behind. As the tour guide began his tale that evening, his voice resonated with solemn authority. During the Civil War, this site served as a post for soldiers. Imagine the bloodshed, the anguish, and then, for over a century, it became home to hundreds of mentally ill patients, many of whom met tragic ends. Their spirits, they say, have never left. Shall we go inside? The group shuffled forward, their steps hesitant. Among them was Clara, a writer drawn to the asylum's dark history. Her notebook and pen felt heavy in her pocket as she entered the foreboding building. She could feel the weight of unseen eyes, a tangible presence that sent shivers down her spine. Elsewhere in West Virginia, the old Moundsville Penitentiary stood like a stone monolith against the pale moonlight. Once a cage for the state's most dangerous criminals, its walls had absorbed the despair and rage of its former occupants. Over a century of operation, the penitentiary bore witness to 94 executions and countless acts of violence. Among the most infamous tales was that of R.D. Wall, a prisoner brutally butchered by fellow inmates in 1929. His death was but one drop in a sea of bloodshed punctuated by a riot in 1986 that claimed 3 more lives. Tourists flocked to Moundsville during Halloween, seeking cheap thrills among the reported cold spots, disembodied voices, and sightings of a shadowy figure known as the Shadow Man. But tonight, the air was thick with something darker. As the tour group passed through the execution chamber, Clara's hand brushed the wall and she felt a jolt, as if the building itself were alive, angry, and desperate to tell its story. Meanwhile, in the shadowy valley of Sumter, Oregon, remnants of a bygone era lay dormant. Between 1912 and 1934, the valley's gold dredges had clawed at the earth, pulling riches from the riverbeds at a terrible cost. The machines were crude, dangerous, and unforgiving. One man, Christopher Rowe, met a gruesome end when he was pulled into the gears of a dredge in 1918. His death marked the beginning of eerie occurrences around the machinery. By the 1940s, workers whispered about a ghost they called Joe Bush. Tools went missing, lights flickered, and lunches mysteriously disappeared. Wet footprints appeared on the decks of the dredges, even when no one was near the water. Some claimed Joe's restless spirit had taken up residence in the gears themselves, forever bound to the machine that ended his life. Farther south, in Louisiana, the Myrtles Plantation cast a spectral glow in the swampy landscape near Baton Rouge. Built on land rumored to hide a Native American burial ground, the plantation's history was steeped in blood and sorrow. Legend told of at least 12 ghosts haunting its rooms, though records confirmed only one documented murder, that of William Winter. Winter's ghost was said to retrace his final moments, staggering up the grand staircase, where he succumbed to his wounds. But the most chilling tales revolved around Chloe, a slave woman executed for poisoning her master's family. Her ghost, adorned in a green turban, was said to wander the grounds, her sorrow palpable. The plantation's otherworldly residents included children lost to yellow fever, a young girl dabbling in voodoo, and even a Civil War soldier. Clara couldn't shake the image of the plantation as she read the accounts. Each story seemed more harrowing than the last, and she knew the house itself must have soaked up centuries of pain. At Huntingdon College in Alabama, Pratt Hall's corridors echoed with the unearthly wails of the Red Lady. Martha, a lonely student from New York, had come to the college at her father's insistence. Her aloof demeanor alienated her classmates, leaving her isolated and depressed. One fateful night, Martha took her own life in a dorm room, her despair etched forever in crimson. Since then, students reported flashes of red light emanating from the room where Martha died. The air grew heavy on the anniversary of her death, and some claimed to see her ghost, her sorrowful eyes glaring from the shadows. Pratt Hall became a beacon for thrill seekers, though few left without feeling Martha's anguish seep into their bones. Clara's journey eventually took her to Fall River, Massachusetts, home to the infamous Lizzie Borden House. The brutal murders of Andrew and Abby Borden in 1892 had captivated the nation, and Lizzie, Andrew's daughter, stood trial for the crime. Though acquitted, she was forever marked as the prime suspect. The house where the killings occurred now served as a bed and breakfast, its macabre history drawing ghost hunters and curiosity seekers. Visitors claimed the spirits of the victims lingered, reliving their violent ends. Cameras set up throughout the house captured strange phenomena, and whispers of unseen figures filled the air. Clara's pen scratched feverishly in her notebook as she listened to tales of shadowy presences and phantom footsteps. She couldn't help but feel that the walls held secrets too terrible to unveil. In Villisca, Iowa, another murder house bore the weight of unresolved tragedy. The 1912 massacre of the Moore family and their 2 house guests had left the town reeling. The killer, wielding an axe, had vanished into the night, leaving behind only carnage. The house, preserved as a museum, attracted paranormal investigators who reported chilling encounters. Former residents spoke of shadowy figures at the foot of their beds, the sound of sobbing children, and closet doors that slammed shut of their own accord. Shoes filled with blood and moved across rooms, and some visitors claimed to hear a ghostly voice confess, "I killed 6 kids." Clara couldn't shake the thought of the children's spirits, forever trapped in a house that had been their sanctuary. Legends of Native American curses added another layer of terror to America's haunted history. Near Athens, Pennsylvania, the story of Queen Esther's revenge sent chills down Clara's spine. After her son's death, Esther had led a bloody raid, only to be captured and lynched alongside her people. Her anguished spirit was said to haunt the land, her cries echoing through the trees. Hunters reported seeing a weeping woman beneath an ancient oak, her presence accompanied by inexplicable malfunctions of weapons and equipment. Some believed Esther's curse protected the land from further desecration, a spectral warning to those who dared trespass. In Adams, Tennessee, the tale of the Bell Witch stood out as one of the most chilling accounts Clara encountered. Between 1817 and 1824, the Bell family endured relentless torment from an unseen force. Poltergeist activity plagued their home, livestock were spooked, and family members suffered physical attacks. The entity, believed by some to be the spirit of a vengeful neighbor, seemed particularly fixated on patriarch John Bell, whose death was attributed to the witch. Though the Bells no longer owned the property, the legend endured. A nearby cave, known as the Bell Witch Cave, became a hotspot for paranormal activity. Visitors reported hearing eerie voices, seeing spectral figures, and feeling an unshakable sense of dread. Clara couldn't help but wonder if the witch's wrath extended beyond the Bell family, ensnaring anyone who crossed its path. As Clara sat in her hotel room that night, her notebook brimming with tales of restless spirits, she felt a peculiar weight settle over her. These stories weren't just folklore, they were echoes of human suffering, pain etched into the fabric of these places. She stared out the window, the darkness pressing against the glass, and felt an unsettling awareness, as if she were not alone. Somewhere, in the corridors of her mind, she heard the faintest whisper. It wasn't the wind or the creak of the building. It was a voice, calling her back to the places she'd visited, as if the ghosts she'd written about were summoning her into their world. She shuddered, closing her notebook, and turned off the light. The stories might have ended on paper, but in the shadows, they lingered, waiting. Thank you for joining us on this chilling journey through America's haunted history. If you're fascinated by the supernatural and the macabre, subscribe to Whispering Shadows Ghost Story Asylum. Don't forget to hit the like button, leave a comment sharing your thoughts or your own ghostly encounters, and share this video with fellow thrill seekers. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an eerie tale. Who knows, the next story might be even closer to home.